Greetings, everybody, and welcome to SIRDCAST number 7. We have the amazing Russel Piner here on the other side. Russell, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with Ollie and I.
Not a problem. It's always a pleasure to speak to you two gentlemen, and thanks for inviting us on.
Awesome. So, Russell is a serving member of Her Majesty's Corps of Drums for the Royal Marines. His extensive career has afforded him many opportunities to excel as a composer and a drummer, writing multiple compositions and gaining his diploma in Snare Drum and Natural Trumpet in 2012. In 2017, Russell became Bugle Major Training at the Royal Marines School of Music. So this is a huge responsibility for the development of all the Royal Marines drummers and buglers that go through there. So, I mean, Russ, you have a lot we're going to talk about today, but I think your reputation precedes you, and Ollie and I just are really grateful. So, Ollie, what do you have to say just to open this up for Russell?
Russ, you're really amazing. When I remember when I joined the Royal School of Music and I met you, you're such a humble person, but when I look at the organization you had and the style, the unique style of the Royal Marines, for me it was really, how shall I say, a quick special surprise how you do this and what is the style. Actually, that's what was my question. How would you explain what you're doing there? What is the Royal Marines style of drumming and also the core esprit you are doing?
Yeah, so Royal Marines Corps drums, the style, I suppose one of the obvious things with the Royal Marines Corps drums is the stick work. And it's not solely the Royal Marines that do this. It's kind of ubiquitous with the UK and other military drummers in the UK, like the Army. But the Royal Marines, we've been able to take it and kind of develop it over sort of many years. I kind of see it as a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because it's our secret to our success, because it's made us who we are. Mm-hmm. The visuals, it's something which any layperson, who doesn't drum, but somebody who appreciates, maybe sort of dance or choreography, it's that same kind of sphere.
But it's much more than that, because when I was there, and that's what I actually was amazed about is your concept. It's a really smart and really strong concept of drumming, and I think that's why I was a little bit overwhelmed. How shall we introduce you? Because it's a really unique style, Mark. To say that, and we are always. I mean, you play with the most famous drum corps in the world. We will come later to that, and you still stay as you are. Unique, and you push that through in a really good concept. And I think it's the sticking from a visual part, but I think it's much more behind.
Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of dichotomies we have as rudimental drummers, is that we're so rooted in the past and our traditions. Yet you look at some of the, what drummers are doing now today, both visually, rudimentally, technically, they're always pushing the boundaries. So there's always that kind of that sweet spot where you've got to get it just right, where you've got to get it entertaining. You've got to get it obviously all together and working as a team, but you've also got that kind of your 1 foot rooted in the past as well. And I think that's what we've always tried to do in the Royal Marines. Been in the military, I'm sure both of you will appreciate, you're kind of tied to regulations, you're tied to tradition, and we can't push things too far in one direction, but so we've always got that in the back of our minds, what drills we do, what visuals we do. It's kind of, and stick work, although it's, our tradition now, it's relatively recent, in the scheme of things, certainly in drumming, possibly, I don't know, 125, 130 years old, perhaps, where it started, and, it's another whole conversation, but it's what we've been able to do in the Royal Marines is really kind of take it to a point, hone the skills, turn it into a kind of almost like an art form, I was thinking today earlier that, the Royal Marines drummers and all rudimental drummers, we started off as signalers.
Yeah.
As that kind of died out, we became sort of more of a ceremonial aspect of the military. And then nowadays we're showmen. You know, we've come that full sort of range, and that's where we get our, you know, that's why we're employed nowadays, is really to sort of represent our countries, our military, and, you know, and sort of share our tradition, to coin the phrase.
I love it. Well, I also think of this as kind of a Venn diagram. So if you to look at one circle and you say that one circle is history or tradition or heritage, then you have the other circle as contemporary or modern or something like that. And those two circles kind of have touch points where they overlap a little bit. Instead of it being, you know, here is the box that we are put in and we have to be inside of this square box. I don't think it's really like that. I think it's more of the idea of these two circles and there's a point where they converge, and you have to know, and you have to be, as the leader that you are, able to find what's too much of those two circles, you know, converging, and what's not enough. Because if one's not enough, you're going to lose the modern audience. But if you do too much, then you really are kind of tearing yourself away from that tradition. And I know when I had spoken to you about your, like, the tradition, even in your family, I know that you have a legacy in your own family with drumming in the Royal Marines. Could you walk us back to kind of your beginnings of, you know, how you were introduced to music, and then kind of what brought you into the idea that you could join the Royal Marines?
Yeah, so my story, my sort of drumming story really begins with my father. So he joined the Royal Marines at the sort of the young age of 14 as a boy bugler, 1953. And, you know, back then you were employed, still much as a signaller, really, you know, because the buglers, as we're known, still signalled on board ship. You know, it's still a big part of Navy life. So he was in Royal Marines. He figured out how to drum, you know, and back then, as I said, sort of drumming was more of a ceremonial thing. It wasn't necessarily a technical skill as such. You know, it wasn't taken to that point. But fairly early on, my father, Alan Piner, he kind of realised he had a bit of an affinity with drumming. He was really drawn to it. So he progressed through his career, went on board ships, sailed around the world, spent a few years in Singapore. But just before that point, he'd been really inspired by Alex Duthart, you know, obviously the world famous, the grandfather of pipe band drumming. And he joined the local pipe band from where he was from. And that was really the first time he'd actually, you know, learned about drum rudiments, you know, proper drum rudiments, learned about different techniques of drumming, and actually saw what was possible of drumming. And from there he entered competitions. You know, he won competitions, he composed loads of stuff, and really what he did was he saw the Royal Marines, you know, drummers fully rooted in the traditions, you know, and rightly so, but not really moving on, not moving forward, not making, as I said before, not becoming the showman which we are today. So he saw the Scottish pipe drumming, and he thought, you know, this is incredible. Why aren't we doing more of this? Why aren't we educating ourselves, pushing ourselves to become better drummers? And that's what he did. You know, he through his own compositions, you know, marrying the two styles, he pushed the drumming into what it is now. Then obviously, you know, me and my brother, we're both drummers. Growing up, it was, you know, he was a drum geek. You know, my father, totally obsessed with drumming.
As are we all.
Yeah. And he, of course, he taught us how to drum. You know, and taking all the things he'd learned from the pipe band world. You know, not just playing paradiddles, but shifting accents on paradiddles. You know, mixing different rudiments together, and you know, create these sort of exciting exercises, which really, you know, engaged us. And during the time as well, he was in charge of a cadet band, so he taught us, you know, he taught loads of young kids how to drum. and I was one of them. My brother actually followed in his footsteps, became a Royal Marines drummer, and he had a great career. I know you've met him, Mark, out in Pasic, or Pasic, is it?
Yeah,
in 2015.
Good catch. The new terminology for Pasic,
Pasic, yeah. So then I got to become age, and I very nearly didn't join. I was going to go to university and do other things, but because there was a bit of a hiatus from recruiting at the time. But just as I was leaving college, kind of a audition became available. Went along. Obviously met our good friend Stu Wilmington, Phil Hawkins. We all joined together.
Yep.
We auditioned, and I never looked back. Really, I joined up. But at that time, I was wrapped up in the whole world of the Royal Marines drummers. I didn't look. That was my horizon, was the Royal Marines Corps drums. Right. And whilst there was drummers within the Royal Marines looking further afield, looking to America, Scotland, certainly. For me, it was just Royal Marines drumming, and it wasn't really till much later in my career where I actually started to kind of really broaden my horizons.
I love it. I mean, and that's something definitely we can certainly unpack much more, is that 2015 PASIC experience, because it was the same thing for the old guard drummers. We had seen things online, we had been playing the American style, we had this DCI influence, but when you're starting to talk about the other countries that have this super deep rooted tradition, and they're having the same types of issues or the same types of challenges that we in the United States were having, of trying to figure out how much of our tradition do we need to keep, how much of the tradition needs to evolve, and then who's getting angry with you because you changed a little bit of the tradition. These are the same conversations, I think, across the globe.
Yeah, I mean, my father back in the day, he was really up against it. He never progressed through the ranks. He was always just a bugler, like the lowest rank. But he made such a huge difference. But he was up against it, because there was people not wanting to move forward, partly because of tradition, but also partly because of they were afraid. They're supposed to be in charge. They're supposed to be ones driving things forward, and then you've got this young upstart who's streets ahead of them. I remember one conversation. So Edinburgh Tattoo, I think, kind of early 60s. And, my dad had sort of brought this pipe band drumming along. Obviously, you've got hundreds of pipe drummers at the Edinburgh Tattoo. And they were trying to transcribe one of the pieces that they were playing, just a set of solos. We're still playing today. They're called Pompey number ones. And, the Royal Marines drummers were kind of integrating with pipe band drummers, learning different styles. And the kind of hierarchy told them, no, you can't interact anymore. You're not allowed to drum with them anymore. We're the best in the world, and we weren't at that point. Who is the best in the world? But it was that kind of arrogance which really was hard to get over, and that's why today, with SIRD, with the global interactions we are today, everyone can see there's always something to learn, but back then it was kind of blinkers on, and it was really tough to progress. But luckily, if you ever meet my dad, he's a really kind of determined, frustratingly so sometimes, but if he sets his mind on something, he'll get it done. And that's he sort of dragged me up through.
Excellent.
And I think it's also understandable, because I see that also with us or with other, if you're so successful and you're so strong, believe and engaged, it is a natural course, I say, to not only believe in what you're doing, but also to be, I wouldn't say afraid only, but also take very cautious, if you train people, that it stays pure and authentic. So I think that's something we also have to take in consideration, and maybe take that also as a not only stubborn or ignorance or arrogance. What I also see, I don't mention it, but we have that in our country as well. I think it's maybe also a natural thing. But you know what just occurs me? I mean, Mark and I, we are drummers and we are working normally with fifers, but you are really unique because, and I've always wanted to ask you this question: how much are you bugler and how much are you drummer? Because you are really both. And when I felt really amazed, but also a little bit when I was in your school and everyone is playing the bugles and we are all the drummers. And I felt, I want to do that as well. I really admire you guys.
Yep.
But to be honest, I really always wanted to ask you, how much is it in your role you're doing and how do you feel yourself? Because you mentioned your father as a bugler, going to a drummer. Is it the opposite with you or how do you see it? Or it's part of the job, like some of your drummers when I talk.
Yeah. Well, it's quite unique in the fact, it's in the UK, you're a drummer and a bugler, because, and we've had this conversation, amongst us in buglers and the Royal Marines, how much do we do drumming? Are we drummers more than buglers more than drummers? I would say, sort of practically, and in actuality, it's probably about 80% drumming, 20% bugling. But if you take of what is important and what is the most important part of our job, it's probably 80% bugling and 20% drumming, really, because the most important thing we can do as a bugler is to play at service funerals, play at repatriations, so playing the last post, and that's really what. It doesn't get any more important than that. So you've got to be good at both. You've got to be a solo bugler, really, because you're out on your own. When we're core drums, we're a team, we're a collective, and because the style of drumming that we have, where we have like a soloist or a solo part, but then we have accompanying lines, which don't require as much technical skill. If you're talking about rudimental drumming. But more of that kind of choreography and the stick drill that we do. That obviously takes a lot of time as well. But it is the bugle is the most important part of it, which is difficult because most people in the core drums are much happier playing the drum. They're more inclined to be drummers.
That's why I was asking. It was very interesting for me when I asked your soldiers.
Yeah.
They all said, yeah, we have to go now out and play it, So it's like drill. But to be honest, Mark, we had the discussion before. If you want to be a really dedicated drummer, really a musical drummer, you have to be in somehow a correlation with music. And I think that makes you also unique. And that's what I try to express when you say about culture and the drum style. I mean, I strongly believe that the influence of piping, drumming, Scottish drumming, but also the bugles helps you really to be that attractive, flexible, and not only experts in sticking and rhythm, also to have that musical flair. And when I look at your compositions you write and also the tradition in your books, I can see that. And I think you couldn't achieve it if you wouldn't only, sorry to say that, only a drummer. I think the bugling helps you enormously to see that. I think that's for me amazing, because normally we always play with someone and you play also with the band. I think that's another part. I mean, the Royal Marines band without drummers would be not that character. I think that's
I couldn't agree more.
That's another component. What maybe Mark with his fife and drums, old guard, who is unique. I mean, I have the privilege to play with fifers, but also with a wind band, and I think that's a completely different way of drumming to support such a orchestra. And I mean, I looked yesterday, you had the Mountbatten Festival, unfortunately digital, but if you look at how you play together, I mean, this is amazing. And that comes to my next question. What are the biggest events you for yourself is really impeccable? Is it the Mountbatten Festival, or is there other for a Royal Marines drummer and for yourself, or what is the highlight?
Okay, well, just going back a bit on what you were saying about being a bugler, and and one of the things which we teach at the School of Music, one of the really important things is to listen, oral skills. and it's so important because when you play the bugle, you also play the E flat herald trumpet as well. And it's all about, because they're natural instruments. Every sound you create is with your lips, because there's no vowels or anything. So we've really got to develop your sense of hearing, because you want to pitch that note, you need to hear it first. And that also comes into the drumming. We have a professor of the drums who is Matt King. He's an orchestral drummer, and that's what and one of his big things which he teaches is that kind of radar listening, not just to the bands but also to each other, developing that skill. So that's something which we put quite a bit of importance on. And then going to your second question about the highlights. So yes, we have Mountbatten Festival of Music, obviously one of the most famous venues, certainly in the UK. We have the Horse Guards Parade, the Beating Retreat, which we do every couple of years. That was always one of my favourites, because it's MFM. It's a great concert, and the core drums feature in a few spots, and and we obviously get a good round of applause generally. But the Beat Retreat is all really about the core drums. It's the drum majors and the drummers, and it's that real part of history, tradition. The actual beating retreat, playing British Grenadiers, doing a sort of a drum salute, drum beatings, all the bugle calls that we do as well. So that was always really good. But if you talk about my personal kind of top gigs that I've done, I mean, there's been quite a few, obviously. I think Edinburgh Tattoo is always a big one. But the 2015, going out to West Point, working with the Hellcats, and just being invited to be able to perform at one of the reviews out there. That was just I was playing the bugle out there, which was really, really unique, and I never thought I would ever get to do that. Performing with the old guard at Pasic. That was something, because I think we'd only recently met, Mark. I think, were you in the UK the year before, was it?
Exactly. Yeah, it was I think a handful of months actually, because it was one of those things where you talk about it online, you send a few emails, but you haven't really done anything actually together. So everyone's like, "Are you serious? Is this going to happen?" So I made sure that a few of us were able to go out, and actually meet you all in person, before we actually did the actual performance in San Antonio.
Yeah, and that was really cool, because I think you'd been across the year before, or earlier that year, and you'd done a workshop with Peter,
right?
And
right.
Dave was there, Dave Loyal, Cara, which was really cool, and that was really my first exposure in real life to fife and drum of that quality. But then to come out later that year and actually perform with you guys on stage for Pasic was awesome. And that bit at the end where we had everyone up playing Crazy Armour, I think John Wooten and I think Dominic was there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just one of those crazy moments, isn't it? You don't really forget. But back to your question, my all-time favourite gig has to be Royal Albert Hall 2016 with Top Secret Drum Corps. That was just, everything about it, not just the fact that we're on stage at the Albert Hall. We're playing some pretty cool drumming, obviously. The fact that we're playing with Top Secret, that's something I never thought I would ever get to do, and I'm stood next to them. The reaction from the audience every night we did it, was just incredible. And even if you speak, Top Secret have done some amazing gigs, but even if you speak to those guys, they all say it's one of their favourite gigs just because of the reaction from the audience. But to top it all off was the fact that I was able to work with Yoshi, working on the actual piece and the choreography, putting it together. And this is obviously, this isn't the dark ages of technology, but this is late 2015, and he's in Switzerland, I'm in the UK. This is kind of just when Skype for me, certainly. I haven't really used Skype that much, but trying to do rehearsals over Skype, sending things via Google Drive. I'd write a bit, he'd write a bit. We're bouncing ideas off each other. But to see it all come together, and it really did come together like last minute. I remember so for MFM we have basically like 3 days to rehearse it all, but we didn't have Top Secret. Top Secret weren't getting there until the Wednesday. I think it was the Wednesday, and then the gig is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So there was like no time to rehearse with Top Secret. And I remember the first day in rehearsals when it was just the Royal Marines drummers. It was just a car crash. It was just horrendous, and I'm sort of thinking, are we going to be able to pull this off? Because people had learned stuff, but obviously the Royal Marines drummers were all across the country. People up in Scotland, West Country. So it's the first time we'd got together and trying to sort of get our drumming together in a matter of hours. We were up against it. But then we go to London, and then Top Secret join us, and we literally have probably 2 hours together, and that's probably all the rehearsal time we had actually on stage to work at all the choreography, to make sure that the drumming was together, that we're listening to each other, that when we're doing the cross drumming, we've got 2 different types of drum, making sure that all works, and I remember looking out, and Eric Juilliard was there, and he was sort of shaking his head disapprovingly, I think, on the first couple of run throughs, because we weren't doing it. But you get the uniforms on, you've got a packed audience, you march out, and then everyone's game just raises, and you get the feedback from the audience, and it was just incredible. So that's got to be my top gig.
That's incredible. I love hearing that, because not many people even get the chance to step foot in Royal Albert Hall to see a show. And then to be a part of a show is one other thing. And then to do it many times, and then to have a group like Top Secret, as well as Her Majesty's Royal Marines. I mean, like that's what dreams are made of for kids who pick up drumsticks. So, I mean, and if you think about it, that's what's so incredible about you telling this story, is how humble you are about it. Here's the underbelly of it, where it was not very good at first, but we came together. But I mean, if you saw that on Facebook, or if you saw it on TV, or you saw anything online, I mean, it looked perfect. I mean, it looked 100% perfect. And it's just that's that overarching story, is nothing is ever perfect the first time. Get it together, make it happen, work on it, work on some details. And, if you have someone like an Eric Juilliard or you that's in charge of something, you're going to make it better every single time you play it. And I think that's an inspiring story.
Yeah, no, it was a cool time. And I don't think people would realize how little time it actually, it literally came together the last minute.
Yeah,
literally. I think actually we were doing rehearsals, and I think part of the ceiling had collapsed as well. One of the sort of sound things had fallen, so we lost an hour as well. Yeah, so
that's crazy.
We were really up against it, but just amazing time. And also around that time, just another great gig was something I never thought I'd get to do as early as I did, was playing at Fastnacht.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was great.
Visiting Ollie's hometown.
Yeah.
We were all there. You were too, Mark. I think that makes it home, no?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and to be honest, also there, like you said, you're very humble. It was really amazing how everyone blended so good together, and the openness we discussed before, very well tradition or whatever, but this mix of exchanging on the same level and drumming together. I think not each other or education each other, just be together and explore together something.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things we were very keen. Obviously being in the military, being the kind of the PR front of the Royal Navy. The original concept was a drum battle, and we all know a drum battle is a friendly kind of thing that happens between drummers. It's all good fun. But as soon as you sort of say, we're gonna have a drum battle, Top Secret, not everyone gets it.
Yeah.
So we had to approach it from a way that it was much more collaborative and the coming together, which I think works really well, because the idea is we start apart and then we come together. We each do a bit of our own style. We each do each other's style, and then we join in the finale together.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I always feel like when people they talk about the drum battles, it's only 2 chapters of an entire story, right? So, one side plays, the other side plays. Okay, that's nice. The other side plays again, the other side plays again. Maybe that's a little nicer. But if you can bring those 2 groups together after they've played their pieces to do a combined thing, I mean, that's the end of the fairy tale. And I think that's, what a lot of people want to have the story to be. So, working with SIRD and working with you guys about, a common repertoire and all of that kind of stuff, I think has really been something very positive for SIRD moving forward. And to kind of hop into the next segment, is you're very instrumental in the next symposium that's coming up for development of rudimental drumming and this global partnership that we have with civilian groups and military groups, which I think this has never happened before. And, you have been really on the forefront of SIRD and a lot of the things that we've been doing since the very beginning. Could you tell us a little bit about what this symposium is going to be about this year, the timeline of it, when you guys are planning on having it, and then, just some few details?
Yeah, so the 3rd symposium has been a bit of a roller coaster, shall we say, because of the obvious, COVID. It was all planned for 2020 in Portsmouth in September. That obviously got pushed right. We rescheduled for June this year. So in fact, it should have been happening in a few weeks' time. But wisely, start of this year, things weren't getting better, and just because we want this event to be as inclusive as possible, we want as many people to be there as possible. So anything that's prohibitive, travel, people's finances, accommodation, whatever it is, So we decided, let's just bite the bullet. We'll put it for 2022 in September. So it's the 16th, 17th, and 18th of September. 2022, which is what we're planning for. Fingers crossed, we won't get pushed back any further. And really, it's building on what we've done, from the first symposium in Bern to Paris in 2018, and just learning from them, learning from other similar types of events, and how we can put on the most comprehensive, kind of event over the weekend, and. You've obviously both been to them, and time can slip away very quickly. So I really wanted to kind of make it as focused up as possible and concise as possible, and just have either the very best workshops and masterclasses, or the most interesting, or the newest. So the plan at the moment is on the Friday, everyone will arrive around 2:00. We'll have some welcome drinks. People can chill out, mingle, and then we'll go into some early sort of presentations. And these presentations will be from lots of the newer countries, lots of the countries where some significant things have happened. And these presentations are kind of updates for everyone, really, just to get a feel for what's going on in certain countries. It doesn't have to be every country, but certainly, countries where things have been moving forward. And amongst that, we'll probably have some maybe some sort of ensemble pieces playing, and then that will go into the evening, which will be a kind of like an evening reception, again, just to mingle, because that's when a lot of the best conversations I had is when people have got a beer, got some wine, and we just stood around talking about drumming. And I envisage in the corners of the room we'll have some drum pads set up so people can go away and do some drumming and talk, and just the sort of things we love to do. Then into the Saturday, if we've not drunk too much, we'll go into the main event, really, which is a whole day of workshops, masterclasses, presentations, covering a whole range of different topics, and again, try and make it as varied as possible, but also as good quality as possible. So selecting different presenters, who will bring something new. And hopefully alongside that as well, we're hoping that our Fifers, our brothers and sisters from the Fifing world, will be able to do a similar kind of symposium at the same time. That will run pretty much all day, and then in the evening we'll have a formal dinner. And what I'm hoping for this is throughout the evening we'll have kind of like vignettes where somebody will come up, or a group will come up onto stage, do a small performance or presentation, all very kind of relaxed, but it's a kind of a formal dinner just to kind of celebrate SIRD. And then that will run its course. And then on the Sunday, hoping for a small expo at the hotel. We can invite some of the trade stalls and the producers and drum builders, etc., from whoever wants to come along. And then that will lead into to kind of capital off will be a performance at the historic dockyard in Portsmouth, with the backdrop of HMS Victory, and each of the groups will come up and they'll play some pieces as a kind of pop-up concert almost. The way I'm thinking of this would work is it would start off with possibly individuals would come up, then small groups would come up, then it would be specific countries would come up and they would play maybe together, slightly larger groups playing country specific repertoire, and then it all builds, and then it finally finishes off with as many people as possible playing the shared repertoire or the kind of the global repertoire. So the concert gradually builds up over a period of time, and then we have I'm hoping we can get something to sort of signify the end of our symposium and the handing over to the next, bit like kind of an Olympic torch type thing, like a symposium drum, I suppose. And we'll include that as the kind of the finale to sort of pass it on to the next. So that's what's in my head. Hopefully we can get it all, we can bring it all off, and there's lots of other ideas, to try and bring into it, phrase booklets, making sure that people who don't speak English are catered for, in some sort of PDFs, giving out gifts. There's lots of possibilities and lots of things we want to do, and try and make it as good as possible.
I love it. It sounds super exciting. And so this is
in my head it does.
So this is in Portsmouth, UK, right? And so Portsmouth, UK is a super historic area, and HMS Victory, I think, is probably one of the most iconic backdrops that you would ever find, obviously for UK history. But there's also a tie to the Royal Marines there that you were sharing a little earlier before we hopped on there, right? There's a former Royal Marine musician that also works at the boat. Is that correct?
Yeah. There's Rasher Bacon, or Steve Bacon is his name. He was a former Royal Marines trumpet player, but he works on he's officer of the day on board. And in fact, he might not have been on there, I think, because when you visited UK, Mark, I think you might have come aboard. Have you been on, Ollie? Have you been on the Victory?
I met him.
Yeah, there you go. That was him, yeah. So
I have to say, it was one of those special moments where you get to have a rum in Lord Nelson's quarters. That was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible ship, But the whole area, around that area in Portsmouth is pretty cool. There's lots to see, and hopefully it'll be a destination where we'll have lots of drummers who will want to come and participate. I know that I'll do a shout out for British Drum Company. They've given an open invite for people to go up to Stockport to see the factory, and a bit of a plug, but yeah, it is pretty fascinating. I've not been up, obvious reasons, for a little while, but every time I go, something new is happening. Something they've totally turned around the factory, or they've got a new product on the line, or new technique that they're employing. It's always really exciting to go there. So if you get a chance next year, make sure you do.
Sounds great. Ollie, do you want to take home the final question here?
Yes, of course, because we have something else until P22, and I think that leads us to our event, the second digital event this year. So Russ, we had also something called discussion. I know you are not the organizer of this symposium, but you were also very instrumental as a thinker and influencer, I would say, in what are the topics. And I think let's talk also a little bit about our projects we're having together, and also where you're heavily involved in the Stickypedia and the digital event in September. So could you tell us a little bit about what we can already release, and the rest, of course, we will present then in September.
Yeah, well, so last year's digital event was one of those things which we had the idea because there was no physical symposium. We thought, let's do something digital, and it was a kind of one of those things that it starts off as like a snowball, and it gradually built until literally 2 weeks before, I don't think I was off my phone for more than 5 seconds with another message, something else to sort out, something, and it was just a frenzy of activity, wasn't it? Those last few days building up to it, it was crazy, but really enjoyable. And, and I think we put on a really kind of broad but interesting event. Following from that, I think it was decided it was a sort of marginal success, and it was a pretty good event. So let's do it again. Let's keep it as a regular thing. So one of the thoughts I had, obviously I'm not the main organizer, but was again just to kind of focus in a little bit, maybe not make it so long and so wide ranging, but have a kind of a topic we're going to sort of focus on, making it maybe slightly short. I think the last one was it nearly 6 hours long? Yeah, which was
overwhelming. It was overwhelming in every part.
That's it. Yeah,
everyone had to talk about everything, but I think that was needed in the first time. But as you said, everyone was so overblown.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, overwhelming was a good word to describe it. Yeah, because we just tried to get everything in there. We tried to let everyone participate that wanted to. We wanted to try and well, we're drummers. You give someone 5 minutes and they're going to take 15 minutes, and so our kind of plans for a 3-hour production very quickly ended up as a 6-hour production. So the plan for this year is to make it a much tighter production, and the kind of theme which was suggested, which I kind of suggested, was rudiments. Pretty obvious because we're rudimental drummers, but specifically the drum rudiment, the humble drum rudiment, when it is the basis of everything that we do as rudimental drummers. But also it ties nicely with the other project going on. There's lots of things going on with SIRD at the moment, but is the Stickypedia, the kind of hopefully eventually the home of all drum rudiments, not just of any single country, but somewhere where everyone's drum rudiments can sit and alongside each other, and you can see the comparisons and differences. And that's why I thought that maybe this year we could celebrate that with the drum rudiment. So obviously people will come with different presentations, but if people have got a slight lean towards thinking about drum rudiments, thinking about either their history, where they came from, how they're used, different uses, some quirky exercises, whatever it is, but just have that in the back of their mind, if people are looking at participating.
And which way you are celebrating? Because last time you made a fun evening. I remember that. It was really great. So we hopped over, from Switzerland to the UK, then to the next one. So you had also a great time live on that time. It was also not natural, or it was not clear, but it was really great. So you plan something similar this year, or how you will celebrate it together with your team?
Yeah, well, my hope is that we can be at the hotel where we'll be for.
Do you want to make us jealous?
Yeah, either that or we'll be in the historic dockyard, perhaps somewhere, but somewhere to tie it to Portsmouth 22, so we can
nice
sort of present from there. Sorry.
Perfect.
A nice
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
Oh, that's
awesome.
really great. Awesome. Good. And when did it happen? So it's still, I think, the 19th of September, correct? So we stick to that.
Yeah, I think that's right. 19th of September.
That will be 1 year before the P22. And now I understand as well why we have to wait and can't cancel it, or because it's such an amazing program you build together. And every time I hear it, it's getting more and more. So it's really...
Yeah, I need to bring them back because I'm just going to make it too complicated.
I know. You had it already 3 times organized. And I think...
Yeah.
But you see, this is really a great thank you to you and your team that you don't give up, because especially in these days, it's easier to say, okay, if it's not on, it's not on, but to stick to it. I mean, this is also a quality what we really appreciate, and we do not see it, or we can't bring it up not enough, because it's really hard if you organize 3 times Symposium and you stick to it. And it gets even better. I don't say, I know we looked into 2020, but I think we will really understand and looking forward to the 22 live. I think we have to end up that we can really do that vision live together.
Yeah, well, that's like...
And the digital one is needed as well because it has other things to offer. And this brings me also to, sorry to say, maybe my last question is, because you're not only, let's say, we talked about culture, about the best in class and so on, but next to your concept, you have also very good educational modern books. And you also work, and you always came with presentations on digital, audiovisual training. And I think that's also a part where the Royal Marines and also you are very strong at. And that would be maybe one of these questions. How do you see, I know it's a standard today after COVID that we do it. We had this also in our podcasts, Mark. We had this always as a topic. Education is one of our key topics. But here I think the digital education is also a very important one. And we would like to know a little bit from your experience. And I think also how you see that, what is today and how we go in the future with this.
Yeah, so blended learning is obviously a huge thing which can be used for drummers. It's always tricky because you want to be there physically together, but it's something which in the military we're definitely using a lot more, and in fact so Chris Harris, he's done a lot of work on that front, putting loads of stuff on sort of it's the UK military version of Moodle. It's basically what it is. So we've got loads of our resources now online. So we use and we've been using similar products for a while, for how to rehearse, big events when we've got drummers all across the country. So we've been using it for a while for rehearsals. Education, it's always a bit more tricky because you need to get buy-in from the individuals. They need to start using it. They need to appreciate what it is that they can do. Even if they haven't got their instructor there, there's stuff that they can do. They can still learn if the resources are there and correct and up to date. So we're still in the infancy, really, I think, of what is possible and what are the limitations of it. Just understanding ourselves as instructors and teachers what it is, what it can do and what it can't do, what it can't replace. Nothing's going to beat that face-to-face interaction, but we can certainly cut down time in rehearsals. That student who's got that question which you forgot to ask, he can go back onto his phone, scroll through and find that video, whatever. So yeah, and I think it's going to continue in this way. Obviously, what we're doing with SIRD online, hopefully we'll have more resources on there, like Stickopedia. I think that'll become hopefully in 5-10 years time, it will still be there, and it'll be one of those things which that was a great thing for them to have done at that time because no one else was doing it. So it's definitely here to stay. And we've got to embrace it, haven't we?
Very good. So, final question. If people were trying to find out more information about you, the British Drum Company, the Royal Marines, where would they go to find out more information?
For the Royal Marines, if you search on Facebook, the band of Her Majesty's Royal, or the band of HM Royal Marines, that comes up with the Facebook page. Excitingly, when did it come online? I think it was the start of this year, so it's been up for about 5-6 months. Is the YouTube channel, same title, the band of HM Royal Marines, and that's just been incredible. You know, they've gone from 0 subscribers up to, I think they're up to nearly 40,000 subscribers within a space of 5 months.
Wow.
Which is crazy, you know. So loads of stuff on there. You know, there's playlists with the core drums, what we do. So yeah, that's for the Royal Marines bands. So please, you know, like and subscribe. For myself, you know, I'm on Instagram. Drum Russell. That's the thing. And Drum Russell is my my at. And also British Drum Company. Yeah, just type in British Drum Company into a search, and you'll see the amazing stuff that they do. They're always pushing out some really good social media. They've got some, you know, amazing top artists that they endorse, and you know, just for me personally, you know, to be involved with them. And although it was pretty bad timing, because I got kind of signed as an artist, and then we were basically straight into COVID. So I've not actually been able to go up and get my drum yet. I've not been able to really do much in that regard. But I know, you know, I'm always looking at what they're doing, and it's always really exciting. So that's always really,
well,
yeah, it's just an honor.
I love that you're bringing these up too, because I know that YouTube channel. Also, there's a video of the Christmas truce, I believe, and there's a Royal Marine drummer in there, and that's was one of the most stunning videos. Another one I think also that's there is, you know, I Vow to Thee, My Country, with, you know, the females singing and also playing. I mean, it is just world-class stuff that Her Majesty's Royal Marines are putting together, and I just want to say,
Epic.
yeah, go ahead, Ollie.
Really epic. It's epic. Yeah. It's so much more than what we're doing. So it's, I mean, the imagination is epic. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I said. You know,
I must say, if you look at this is really spot on. I think there we all can learn from it, and also the values you are showing in a very good way.
Great. No, it's exciting times.
Awesome. Yeah. So Russ, any final thoughts?
No, just you know, I look forward to seeing who comes on next and listening to their podcast or SIRDCAST. You know, thank you, Mark and Ollie, for organising these events. You know, and for getting people on. We'll have to make sure that you two get your chance to say your piece as well, and get someone to interview you, perhaps, because you know, two extraordinarily interesting people to speak to. So it'd be good to delve into your stories, I think, at some point.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Well, Ollie, anything you have for Russell to finish out?
It was such a nice ending.
Great. Perfect.
I think now, to be honest, that we could hang on and on and on. There's so many more things to talk about, but as before, Mark and Russ, I think this will be not the last time we have these conversations, and I think that makes us also really privileged that we have this brotherhood or this friendship globally.
Agreed.
And I really appreciated it after that long day to have this, let's say, nice dessert, who is really also give me a lot of thoughts what I can take with. So thank you, both of you, and that really was great to have that. Number 7, another very good edition.
Excellent. I mean, from me, thank you to both of you for the time this afternoon and this evening. I look forward to seeing you both in person again, hopefully way sooner than later. And thank you for helping keep the spirit alive, Russell.
Thank you.
No, thank you. You know, you talk about who your mentors and who inspires you, but you know, today it's hard to be not inspired by, you know, anyone, because everyone's got so many people to look at. But certainly you two are up there for me. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it, Russ. All right.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye. Thank you.
Cheers.